Ladies and gentlemen, take whatever impressions or whatever you know about the world's most famous and capable 4x4s and leave them aside for a while, because for today, we're going to be looking at one of the granddaddies of all off-roaders. Let's have a revisit of the Toyota Megacruiser BDX10. So what is a Toyota Megacruiser actually? Let's have a walk around the vehicle to appreciate its heft and size while we take a little history lesson. So this was Toyota's answer to Japan's authorities calling for the build of a Japanese military vehicle. This was used by the Japanese Self-Defense Forces, manufactured from 1995 right up to 2001, and discontinued in 2001 due to high production costs and low demand. And of course, it's kind of too wide to fit in the streets of Japan. If you have been to Japan before, you know that K cars are very popular, whereby it's easily slightly half the width of this thing. This thing is twice or thrice the size of standard Japanese cars. So at the end of its tenure, it had around 2,800 units, nearly 3,000 units in service of the military, and they were sold off to civilians, stripped down of their military tech and smarts, stripped down and then sold off. It is unknown how many units have been sold off and been converted into civilian models. Apparently most of them, or many of them, are in Russia, Kazakhstan, and making its way into the US market as well, due to the fulfillment of the 25-year import rule. Would you just look at the heft of this car from the front? You see this coming behind you, you will feel intimidated by its boxy and rather utilitarian look that it has. Starting from the front, recessed headlamps protected by these two protective grills, much like what you find on, say, the old Pajeros from 1997, where it also had these grills for protection. This circle used to house an infrared system whereby soldiers can maneuver this vehicle even under very poor visibility conditions. So before the Japanese army sold it off to civilians, they had taken a hammer to all of these to ensure that none of military tech gets sort of leaked out to the civilian market. So we are left with this gapping hole, which you can put anything lah, spotlight ke, you want to add another intake ke, it's totally up to your imagination. Moving down, we have steel plating on the undercarriage to tahan any rocks or any hard impacts that it might incur when driving on rough terrain. Two huge tow hooks or multi-purpose hooks that can be used to tow the car, to pull the car, or even to secure it to something solid. This is the same on the top. Two multi-purpose hooks over here. And let's talk about the hood. It's a huge hood. My God, it's like, I think, nearly 1 meter plus from end to end. And as heavy as it might seem, you'd be wrong, because this is actually made out of lightweight fiber reinforced plastic. So it takes two people to open it, one on each end. There are two latches over here, I'll show you later. And both people have to sort of together lift the hood up to reveal the 4.1 litre turbo diesel inline 4. And while we are in front, have you noticed how many tie down hooks are there on the hood? And also the fact that this thing has 3 wipers for its front windshield. My God, because it is such a wide and long windshield that you need 3 to cover ground. One interesting indentation found on the left hand side of the hood, as told by the owner, was actually to put a water bottle, which not only was used for drinking, of course, but also acts as a leveler, because if you notice, although the hood is slanted, the bottle stays upright straight. So for any operations that require level ground, maybe launching missiles or anything that require level ground, they can place a water bottle And look at the water level. As you can see, it's straight. Kalau saya tilt it a bit, dia akan sengit. So this tells you that the overall vehicle is on level ground and it's safe to deploy whatever that you need to. Interesting. It's very rare that I can stand up straight when talking about the engines of cars, because usually I have to kneel down, but the Megacruiser is so huge that you should guess where I've mounted the camera. Yes, I've put it on the tyre of the Megacruiser because this thing is so high. Alright, this is powered by a 4.1 litre inline-4 turbo diesel, 150 horsepower and 380 Newton meters of torque. A far cry from the Hummer H1's 6.7 Duramax diesel and whatnot, but I believe this would outlast anything, outlast the apocalypse, and is more reliable and is easier to service, and spare parts are in abundance. The owner has told me that it primarily uses Hino parts, lorry tu kan, so spare part memang banyak lah. So this is the engine bay, and the air intake is over there, only on one side. It's at this height, but of course you can extend it with a snorkel if you wish to. The owner has also told me that there is this cloth over here. It's a waterproof, hydrophobic kind of cloth, where if you are wading water, you do not want water to enter the radiator, you just pull it out. It's rolled up macam our windscreen blind. So you just unroll it and draw it down the radiator's in front, and hook it under. So this prevents any water droplets from kacauing your radiator lah. These two hooks are for Chinook helicopters to tie parachutes and have them lifted airborne. The Megacruiser has a ground clearance of around 16 inches. Let that sink in for a minute. 16 inches is the size of some of our rims, and this thing is only its ground clearance. Okay, how does it achieve it? It uses a system called a portal axle. As you can see, the axle, the CV joints, are not in the center of the axle. It is slightly shifted upwards. So how does this move the wheels? When the CV joint turns, it turns a series of gears inside this casing. So gear to gear to gear to gear, and it finally turns the tire. So what advantage does it give? It raises the axle, the ground clearance, by a few inches, because if not, the CV joint would be here. Now it's raised slightly upwards to give it more ground clearance. So naturally, when you have an axle like this, where then do you put the brakes? The answer is they have moved the brakes inside. These are called outboard brakes. Can you see the disc? The disc is moved further inside, and there are two discs, one on each side. These are called outboard brakes, and they help to solve the issue of portal axles not having the space to place a disc brake system. Look at that. It's very cool. This is indeed a very huge vehicle. For starters, just look at the tires. Hampir ke paras pinggang saya. And these are actually 17.5-inch wheels, the rims lah. And while it may seem quite huge on a normal civilian sedan, on this Megacruiser, it looks tiny due to the heft of the body. That's important because you need all of these thick, chunky tires, which the owner has, in fact, used the original specs on his unit. It's a Bridgestone Mud Dweller. Huge tires and very, very befitting of this car. It was originally in green, military green. The owner has painted it this very nice khaki tan, brown tan. Very boxy side. I believe these were gun ports back in the day, where military personnel could point their rifles outwards and start shooting whenever the need arises. So now, since it's a civilian version, it has been converted into a window and perhaps an extra sort of little window for airy days lah. Alright, if you look at the side mirror, it is mounted on this pole over here. Because this car being so huge, it had to be extended outwards for better visibility. And in fact, the story is more interesting on the other side of the pole. This car is right-hand driven. So the side mirror on the left-hand side has an even longer pole for it to be extended, and you would actually have to look at the side mirror through the windscreen. On your normal car, you just look out through the door and you can see the side mirror, but not in this Megacruiser. Due to its heft, you have to look out through the windscreen to see what's going on beside you. Moving inside, the door handle was originally a soft strap nylonish material which tahans the elements better, is easier to swap out, and it's generally more utilitarian than this one. But since this is a civilian version, the owner has since swapped it out with a more permanent handle, so to speak, because he's going to use it every day. And fun fact, this strap actually matches his watch now. That's a very cool touch and a very personal touch. The door latch looks like it came off of a Toyota from that period, which is true considering this had a few Toyota parts thrown in together in the manufacturing of this car. To open the window, you do not wind it down, and of course you do not press a button because hello, this is military, okay? It has to be logical, quick, functional, and most importantly, will not fail on you. It has to be a fail-safe method of winding down the windows. As you can see, this is kind of half open. You would have to pull this knob slightly out, and you can adjust to your desired length. And when you are done with your desired length or height, you can then slot this little knob into one of the holes here. So think of it as gym equipment, you know, a lateral pull down or whatnot, where you have to select your weights and lock them there, then you can perform your exercise. It's the same on this Megacruiser. So in the heat of battle or when you most need it, you can just wind it up very fast. It takes a little getting used to, but in the heat of battle, anything that cuts down coordination and thinking time helps a lot because you need to be responsive to whatever is going on in front of you in the battlefield. This is smart thinking. Sitting inside the Toyota Megacruiser is a bizarre experience because as huge and as wide the car is, remember this car is around 2.1 meters wide, you are actually confined to a small corner when you are driving it. The cockpit, the driving quarters, is just right for one person, and that's it, without much maneuvering room. You also sit quite tegak with your knees quite bent at a 90-degree angle. Honestly, this is comfortable. It has no or none of that low slung position. Of course, it's a military vehicle and outward visibility is very good. So this is an optimal driving position whereby your peripheral vision is not being blocked by anything such as the dash or the steering wheel. All of those are below your eye level and everything is sort of right smack in your face. As you can see, the dashboard is tegak. Everything is right smack in your face, very clearly and legibly to be read. Okay, sitting inside this driver's cockpit, I see a lot of buttons which are very well within reach. Differential lock, your inflation system, your heaters and whatnot, everything is within operable range without having to take your eyes off too much. The auto gear lever is also from a Land Cruiser of that period, 1995 to 2001, that model, that series. However, the bizarreness starts when you look to the left and you see, gosh, there is a 1 meter space, void space, separating you from your front passenger. So macam jauh gila weh. I can't even reach out to the seats from where I'm sitting. But of course, in a military vehicle, function comes over form and design first lah. So whatever space that has been voided in the middle, I believe it has to do with the need of space to put equipment and whatnot. Okay, depending on variant, this Megacruiser BXD10 came in a few variants for a few users. It was used for missile carrying. You can actually launch a missile on the back of this. It's actually used for carrying infantry into battle. So the owner told me that this is nice for 8 people at the back. So 4 on each side. They can be ready to jump out and do their battle anytime. There is also a command version whereby commanders or strategists would be at the back and it will be equipped with desks, like actual desks to put their systems, their laptops, their papers and whatnot. So depending on what the usage was needed at that time, the Megacruiser can transform itself into that. The rear of the Megacruiser is a sight to behold. This is easily what, 7 feet? 7+ feet in height. And remember the width, it's 2.1 meters, which is larger than my wingspan. In the heat of battle, access is very easy because the doors open very wide. Jump inside, and there is also a little step that you can use to make your entry. So step on it and step on. Say you are the final person to step on the Megacruiser, how do you then fold this up? There is a cable from inside where you pull and it sort of refolds the step into its original position, tucked away safely under the vehicle. What's more is that if the tires have been deflated and you need extra external help, these two inlets on each side of the vehicle are there to provide you assistance. You sambung a pipe, of course it's proprietary lah, sambung a pipe where then it can pump air into all of the tires. That's very interesting and very helpful. Besides that, if your battery runs out, there is also a 24-volt plug. Those of you who go to concerts frequently, you would have seen this on the floors of your events, whereby it's a huge circular plug. You plug it in, it charges your batteries depending on where you are, because there are two ports of this kind, one at the back and one near the front passenger seats. What's more is that if you're going off-road and you don't want this mud flap to drag around, you can then hook them into these hooks over here, and this keeps the integrity of the mud flap. So everything here has a function, and everything here prioritizes function over form. I like it. This is a no-nonsense vehicle. The Toyota Megacruiser features 4-wheel steering, which tightens its turning radius because the rear wheels also steer. These are hydraulically assisted systems, no electronic wizardry. So once you turn the steering to a certain degree, or maybe beyond a certain threshold, the rear wheels will also turn. This aids maneuverability because when you're fighting on the battlefield, it's important to be able to be quick on your feet. So let's have a look at the system in function. There you go. As you can see, the front wheels are locked, the rear wheels have also made their turn. Very cool. While on the topic, let's also inflate the tires to their desired road pressures. So this back one has been deflated. There is a central inflation system, so let's turn it back to normal. Can you hear the air going in? There you go. It is now inflated to normal specs. So why would you want to deflate the tire? This is because deflating a tire gives you more traction, especially on uneven ground or especially on soft ground where a wider contact patch is needed to traverse through. So this has a central inflation system. I believe it's quite similar to the Land Cruisers of that era. So let's now reinflate it to the normal road specs. And while we are here, let's have a listen to the 4.1 turbo diesel inline 4. This car is so crazily huge that I can even set up a camera at the back and still have lots of room to roll around. So I'm not going to take it out on the streets, but I'm simply curious to feel how it drives. Let's go. Oh, okay. The throttle response is quite immediate right after you release and start pressing the pedal. Damn, it's such a huge thing to be moving around. Okay. Hopefully the camera doesn't drop. Gosh. This is really huge. Okay, we are coming to the end of the premises, and I hope the 4-wheel steering does its job. The brakes are kind of spongy. Maybe I need to learn to modulate the brake pedals lah. But just look at that, the turning radius. Online, it is said that the turning radius is around 6 meters plus. In comparison, the Camry has a 5 plus meters turning radius, so it's not too far off for a car which is what, 3 times as large. That's impressive actually. And I really need to get used to the width of this car because I can't quite see out, but luckily the side mirror there has an extended pole, so yes, you have to look through the side mirrors, at least for the passenger side lah. You can't look through the door because it's going to be too close to the rear. Okay, so I can already picture our Japanese brothers riding to battle with their very high spirits of patriotism. This is cool, man. It hardly has any soundproofing except for a few panels added on by the owner. Otherwise, it's just bare metal. Underneath me, it's simply a floor mat and bare metal. Itu saja. Alright, I wonder what the top speed of this thing is. 4.1 litre turbo diesel inline-4, 153 horsepower and 380 Newton meters of torque. Good thing the torque figures are high because it has to carry a lot. Jom kita cuba gear reverse. Yeah, the brakes, I need to learn to modulate the brakes a bit. These are 4-pot brakes and 4 units of them, so it's insane. Let's try the reverse gear. Okay, it beeps just like a huge vehicle would. Gosh, tak biasa weh. I mean, when you look back, luas gila. Siap boleh masuk katil, boleh tidur semua. Memang, aduh, boleh buat rumah. People say you can't sleep in the car. Well, you can. Because some say, oh, baik beli rumah daripada beli kereta. Well, in this you have both. Okay, this is very, very bizarre to drive. And you feel the heft. This is around 3 tons plus. In comparison, the Hummer, dia punya kembar, Hummer H1 is about 6 tons plus. But that's in the difference because of the engine. This has an inline-4. The Hummer has a V8 6.2 or 6.7 Duramax diesel. So, of course, that contributes to the extra weight and heft lah. So, all in all, the Toyota Megacruiser is a Hummer with Toyota reliability. It can outlast any apocalypse that you throw at it, come what may. It will slay, I tell you. Woo! This is huge, man. Seriously. What an interesting vehicle we have today. I bet you have not seen one on the road, so a huge shout out to the owner, who shall remain anonymous, for allowing me access to his vehicle and also his warehouse to film this awesome piece of kit. Now you know that there is an Asian twin of the Hummer H1 called the Toyota Megacruiser BXD10. Till then, see you in the next video.